Do-do-do. I forgot to dial up the exposure on my camera because I'm wearing basically a white shirt. That's okay. The video will appear slightly darker. Oh my god, what a busy day. Oh my god. I'll edit that out of this video. I will. I think I will. I have to go look at some real estate with a guy tomorrow, and it's 150 miles away. Wow. I need to give you the definition of overload, and I'm not talking about my overload, I'm talking about your overload. It kind of ties into the prior video about people being unhinged. There's a whole lot of stressors in life, and there's a lot more stressors now than there were, say, even 15 years ago. A lot more. People are just unhinged, but what if we could actually pinpoint some definitive ones? By the way, my iPhone was older than dirt. It was an iPhone 10. And today I picked up a 16 Pro Max, which is not the new phone, which I don't care about. I basically got 60% off the phone from Verizon because I've been with them for 100 years. And I can set it up way faster than most people can. I mean, I'm really fast. I used to do tech support for Apple. I was the #1 person in the world for tech support on the MacBook Air. Yeah, I have a MacBook Air right here. Got a couple of them, actually. I did have 3 of them. I was like, I don't need to keep that old third MacBook Air, so I sold it to my buddy. And then, of course, I forgot the fact that I had to repair my Apple Watch with, yeah, I know, I wear an Apple Watch. I know, you can give me all the flack you want. And these are tracking devices up the yin-yang. I grew up building antennas, Yagi antennas, and there is a reason why they call it antenna theory. Every book on different antenna designs, where there's discone antennas, Yagi antennas, inverted dipole antennas, just on and on. Basically, they're all just fancy geometrical pieces of wire. That is a fact, and that's why it's called theory. There's no branch of current science that actually understands what light is, what electromagnetism is. I'm about to tell you why. The reason why about 80% of people are way crazier now and just unhinged than they were 15, 20, yada yada back. And remember, by the way, that we start getting all these labor-saving devices and everybody is glued to their Black Mirror device. You know, their little iPhone or iPad or Android. Doesn't make any difference. They're all Black Mirror devices. They have all these neat features, and we can watch movies on them and scroll through Instagram and, you know, make videos and, you know, text and find things easier. We don't actually have to have pull-out maps anymore. I know you're probably not old enough to remember having to stop by the roadside and get a new map for a new state, and you'd have to like stop on the side of the road and look at the map and wonder how to get to where you're at, and it's very easy to do that. These labor-saving devices, and they do save us labor on several fronts, but they've made our lives infinitely more miserable. And this is by far not even more than 10% of the reasons. So I don't want you to think this video is about that. This is the overload and why you're fearing it. And this sounds like a strange tie-in, but it's not. People that actually have credible videos of captured extraterrestrial beings, I mean credible ones, that they talk about, and there's pictures, and we actually mimic this in Hollywood and whatnot. They're wearing these silver mesh suits. Yeah. They look like silver. I mean, it could be some sort of space-age metal. But it's some sort of metal suit. Yeah. And there's several reports of people saying they actually had the same thing wrapped around their head that tied into the suit, kind of like metal, ultra-fine mesh pajamas. The only way anti-gravity fuel tech can work is a free energy power source device, and also 2, all so-called anti-gravity craft work off of the right-hand rule, and this means generating enormous EM fields. And I'm about to give you a prediction, too, for the future. I'm going to look into the future like Edgar Cayce. However, Edgar Cayce was only about, I think his success or hit rate was about 32%. This is the future of humanity. What these, whether you believe that they captured extraterrestrials or not, they crash landed or whatnot, there are many credible reports. They all report the same thing. I've never heard anybody talking about this. Not a single person anywhere, on any website, any video. The reason why they're wearing those mesh suits is that they're space-age Faraday cages that you wear. Basically like a onesie with a head covering. Super high-energy EM fields operating off of the right-hand rule for anti-gravity propulsion at extreme speeds or super extreme speeds. Doesn't make any difference. The point being is that the EM fields are enormous. Any such advanced species would know that to go crazy, you'd actually have, no matter how well the craft is shielded against the anti-gravity directors that actually impel the craft, the penetration from the fields is enormous. You'd actually have to have these suits, and wherever it is you walked, you'd be grounding out the energy. So they're working like Faraday cages. There's actually Faraday cages that people have made for artistic demonstrations that they're playing with these multi-million volt Tesla coils, and they'll actually reach out their hand and an arc of lightning will fly off this 20-foot tall, there's videos of this out there, Tesla coil, and it will hit their hand, but they're tied in with a really thick grounding cable. So they can do this number, and the cage will take what is easily a deathly amount of voltage and completely redirect it. And it's very wowing for the people that watch this. But that's the principle of these Faraday suits, these silver mesh, whether it's silver, probably not silver, it's probably some sort of space-aged super metal alloy, who knows what it is. But this ties into the fact that in the near future, humanity, as long as it doesn't destroy itself, if you live in the city, it will be common fare. You know how much, like, just versus 10 years ago, you take any advanced metropolis, right? Super, super heavy, dense Wi-Fi and cellular, just completely off the hook, just 10, 15 years ago. It is way, way, way worse now. Way worse. How do you think it's going to be in another 10 or 15 years? I go out to my cabin in the deep woods where I don't even have cellular reception at all. I mean, you got nothing. You got a few radio stations you could actually tune in. You have some frequencies from satellites from outer space, but those are low power. I have a satellite phone that I've used out there before. But, it's about 98% less than right where I'm sitting right now. And that's with all these devices turned off. Just the radio stations, the high-band 5G, which is dangerous, high-band 5G. And, of course, they have directional antennas now. With 5G, 5G just means fifth generation. That doesn't mean anything. It's not 5G that's dangerous. It's high-band 5G. With the directional beam-forming antennas that can find you, triangulate you, and is pointing the signal out directly at you. Look into signal triangulation 5G. This is a type of antennas. Instead of, like, if it's trying to reach you, it's broadcasting 360 degrees. Instead, the beam forming, and they say it's for constructive and destructive interference against other phones, it's pointing most of the signal directly at you. It knows right where you're at relative to your cell phone, and it's pointing the signal directly at you. People don't understand the millions and millions of frequencies that are passing through their bodies. So anyway, this actually ties in the countless reports of beings from another world that are wearing these metal suits. They have to have that super mega amount of fields penetrating through the craft. Even though it's heavily shielded, you actually have to have a Faraday suit on. Makes sense, otherwise you'd go crazy. Well, there's a reason why city folks are going crazy. There's several different vectors for this. By the way, look up, and there's not a lot of information about it on the internet. It was a program developed by our government back in the late 50s. It's called Project Bazaar. They found set frequencies that would induce fear or anger or anxiety. I think it was a total of 5 emotions that they could induce with repeatable, easily repeatable results. Fear, anxiety, anger. One of them was like a type of near psychosis, and then there's a 5th one. I can't remember what it is. We're surrounded by tech trash. You know, I've got 8 Apple computers in this house. Literally, you know, 2 iPads, an Apple Watch, you know, here's a Mac, there's a Mac, you know, here's a camera. It's just everything, all of us, most all of us, anyway, we're just surrounded by tech trash. People, especially college kids, who don't have time, and I don't have time anymore either, however you don't see me using a microwave, are so busy that everything they're consuming, which is composed of water, most microwaves operate on 2.5 gigahertz, which, by the way, is the medium range for high band. There's low band, mid band, and high band 5G. It's not 5G that's dangerous, it's the frequency. High band 5G is upwards of that 2 to 30 gigahertz range. Anyway, microwaves operate at 2.5 gigahertz. It's actually exciting the water molecules. By the way, 2.45 gigahertz, which is right with microwaves, is allocated frequency, unique water resonant frequency. Water actually has many sympathetic resonant frequencies. It's called harmonic resonance with the water molecule. These frequencies interact strongly with the water molecule's dipole moment. When you actually interfere with that, it's basically like messing up the human antenna. I don't know if you know what percentage of the human body is composed of water. What is it, like 67, 68%? I can't remember the exact percentage. By the way, I have an article that's in the description of every video on the secrets of the water molecule. It's only a few pages long. Just check the description of this video. You'll see the article down there for download. Water, of course, is the very glue that holds matter and spirit together. Even the ancients talked about this. They said you can't unite 2 things without a third. Kind of a crude but nearly perfect radio analogy is the best radio in the world is a useless piece of trash without this neat little thing. It's called the antenna. Well, the dipole molecule of water, which is what makes consciousness and life possible, without water you ain't got life and you ain't got consciousness. You got the signal that's everywhere and nowhere, and you got this radio, which is just a lifeless hunk of nothing. You know, you use the third thing, which is a unifier, and this is kind of like a magic wand. It causes the signal to manifest. Without this antenna, the finest, this is not expensive radio, but even the finest radios are garbage.
Data for Lexington.
I used to have some of the most expensive radios that money can buy. Just the radios people would drool over. ICOM 706 Mark II-G, some really, really expensive Kenwoods. It was like what was it? It was like an 8500 model. I can't remember. Super expensive. Today they're like $6,000. Every ham radio operator out there will tell you without that antenna hooked up, even if it's a piece of bare copper wire, you still need an antenna tuner. It's a piece of junk. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to plug it in and turn it on. It's like, well, I'm not getting anything. This is the most expensive radio money can buy. It's like, yeah, you need to hook up a nice antenna to it. It's worthless. Piece of junk without it. Radio don't come with an antenna. You're supposed to buy that separate and go outside and set it up. And I developed all these tools for setting up inverted V-dipole antennas, raising them off the ground. I know you don't care about that stuff, but I grew up building antennas and looking into antenna theory. Anyway, we're all surrounded by this tech trash, which is just a bunch of field emitters. And most of them are leaky. This is why your parents told you not to stick your face up against the microwave when it was turned on. There's a little Faraday cage in the front there that was mesh that had holes in it that you could kind of look in at a distance at, you know, your food cooking in the microwave there. It's literally disturbing the water presence and also to the molecules of the food itself that you're consuming. How do you think your body reacts to that? Now, if you were to ask a scientist, they'd say, well, it's all relative to the calories and the carbs and the this and the that. It's like, there is no scientist on earth. So what happens if I eat like 200 grams of, oatmeal with 5 teaspoons of sugar in it? They'll calculate the calories and what the oats and oatmeal are made out of. I don't eat oatmeal, by the way. And they say, well, do this for your body, it's got X number. They won't even calculate the fact of what's happened to the water and how it was treated before you consume it. There's Emoto's books on water, and there's all this countless mountain of evidence about microwaved water. And then we're, of course, surrounded by tech trash fields. So here's a tech trash field, here's a tech trash field, Apple Watch, everything. Already, if I turned all this garbage off, I'm still being bombarded by a zillion frequencies, including cellular, radio, VHF, UHF, on and on and on. Are we getting to the point now where we're realizing how and why people are acting like they're off the hook, they're unhinged? Anyway, let's go a little further here. Cellular towers, Wi-Fi. I don't know if you know about Wi-Fi triangulation. They actually use Wi-Fi to paint you. They actually know the response frequency of water, and so the Wi-Fi, you can look this up. This isn't like conspiratorial, it's fact. You use Wi-Fi in your house to triangulate where you're at in the house, and they can usually tell what it is you're doing. You think there's a reason why there's multiple antennas in your Wi-Fi? They used to say, well, this is for amplification in a specific direction so you could get better gain off of your Wi-Fi, and therefore you have a better through rate in bidirectional communication. It's like, well, that's true, but those multiple antennas mean that they can triangulate you. Lack of grounding. I had a video, I thought it was a simple video, and it was, just a couple minutes long. I got a fancy voltmeter over here. I stepped outside, I took my reading off my hands using the voltmeter, and I stepped out of my rubber sandals and I stepped into the dirt, and it way down. Stepped into my sandals, went way back up again. People don't ground themselves. I walk around in my house anyway, and outside, around my house, barefoot as much as possible. People need to think about getting grounding sheets for their bed, and also to think about getting rid of polyester, lycra or spandex bed sheets. I don't know if you know the frequency of polyester versus synthetic. Synthetic's frequency harmonic is basically 0. Cotton and linen, the best is linen. Linen has an extraordinarily high vibrational frequency, somewhere upwards of 5,000 megahertz, while polyester is very low, often considered a 0 frequency. Linen essentially acts, by the way, like a Faraday cage for the body. Wearing linen is this is the honest truth. You could believe me or not believe me. I've worn polyester for way too many years in my life. I'm wearing a polyester shirt right now, I know. I'm not wearing it in the house. I wear a cotton undershirt and cotton underclothing. I'm just going to go as far as that. But when I put on cotton, and I'm not a huge fan of cotton, it doesn't, it breathes, it's got issues. These are soft and silky, and they're great when it's like super, super hot outside, and I know why people wear it. It's the same reason I wear it. But I can actually feel a difference in how much better I feel just by putting on some cotton after wearing polyester for a day or a few days or a week. I mean, I can tell it almost immediately. Actually, not immediately, but very soon afterwards. Take a look at this article. You could find it online. Don't have to take my word for it. It's called Resonant Frequencies of Standing Humans. In other words, you're just a bag of water with some calcium and a few other things. But look at the resonant, there's deep research that's been done on this. It's called Resonant Frequencies of Standing Humans. They actually knew about this decades ago, which is how they developed Project Bizarre. There's not a lot of information online, but if you do a deep search, you can find information about Project Bizarre. Harmonic resonance with water. I've done a lot of look into water, and of course it's the magic molecule. I've actually had that special geometry tattooed on the back of my hand. This is the only symbol of the Pythagoreans, this 115 triangle, the only perfect incommensurable geometry in the entire universe. This is also, too, if you remove the baseline, the geometry of water. This specific isosceles triangle and triplicate makes up the Pythagorean pentagram. And I have also, too, tattooed here on my other hand on these knuckles in Greek, it says Eukata. Eukata is usually translated as health or well-being, but it means harmony. ratio, the logos of proportionality and divine natural order. And it's a reference, too, of water. The secret of water has been known for thousands of years. There's a big secret that I discovered in Plato's Republic, 509d to 511. It's called the divided line section. You take one line, divide it unevenly in each section, you divide it unevenly again. You end up with 5, 1, 1, 1 over 5. These are the proportions that make up the only perfect geometry in the universe, the only perfect incommensurable. And it has holographic self-similarity. And this holographic self-similarity, only perfect geometry in the universe, I'm sure by coincidence, is the exact same geometry that makes up water. Water, by the way, is a polar molecule. And if you want to mess up the glue, because since water is the glue that holds spirit and matter together, upsetting that glue, i.e. water, equals insanity. People are unhinged. We say, well, they're just stressed out. It's harder to pay the bills and buy food now, and houses have become incredibly expensive and hard to get. Now, all of this is true. But the real underlying causes are what we're wearing. Also, too, drinking, a very important factor, is qualitatively impure water. Been a huge advocate of structured water. Nature structures water in springs and underwater aquifers, which is the best place to drink it from. Thankfully, I have a spring, a cave that has spring water flowing out of it. I've showed countless thousands of people the video on live stream. It's kind of hard to get to. You got to hike down. You have to hike down this steep embankment to reach my cave and my spring water, but at least I have a cave and a spring. Technically, I've got 2 springs. One on the other side of the mountain, of the land that I own. You're drinking recycled poo water out of the tap. Now, a so-called scientific doofus will say, oh, it's 99.9%, 999 free of impurities. It's recycled poo water. Not only is it recycled poo water, it is a million times recycled poo water. The stuff and things that has flowed through without anything other than chemical agitation to separate out particulate. There's nearly pure water. There's hardly any dirty stuff in that. It comes out of your tap. It's clean, pure water. Well, it's quantitatively pure, but it is not qualitatively pure. This is what structured water is, qualitatively pure. Well, it's quantitatively pure. Yes, but that's not all that's important. People don't get that. So Wi-Fi, tech trash, microwaved water, cell towers, high-band 5G. What this actually does, and this is a proven fact, that it actually affects the water's molecular dipole moment. And this is just referring to the polar nature of how water likes to have itself at rest, either in standalone or in substances that contain water, like food. What we're essentially doing, in short, to make things kind of simple, is, that we're messing with the glue that holds spirit and matter together. We're basically taking this antenna, which is analogous to water, and bending it and cutting it in half and then duct taping it back together again. And we have so much destructive interference that's affecting this. It's called bleed through. Like, have you ever been to a radio station, you're leaving it, and starting to get scratchy, and then another station that's kind of a close harmonic will bleed through, so you'll hear 2 radio stations. Nobody listens to radio anymore, but you know what I'm talking about. What we wear, the water that we drink that's not good water. Lack of grounding. Think about getting some grounding sheets. They're really cheap online, by the way. Wi-Fi. Cell tower frequency disruption in the 2 to 5 gigahertz range, and we're being bombarded by it. There's a reason why city folk, and I've said this over and over again. I said, why is it that it's 95% city folk that are just cuckoo? And they are unhinged versus Country Bumpkin Joe. Well, Country Bumpkin Joe's more simple-minded. That's why he ain't agitated. That's not it at all. The tech trash and the microwave waters, the cell towers, the Wi-Fi, the bombardment of frequency, it is tearing apart the very glue that holds spirit and matter together. Everything is about signal gain. When you got a bad antenna, I can tell you this, you ask any ham radio person, they'll tell you this is 100% true. You can have the most expensive radio in the world, but if there's something wonky with your antenna or the cable that goes between your antenna and your radio, it's not at the right height, you got, there's breaks or issues with the antenna, you're going to have a problem. The most expensive radio in the world ain't going to pick up trash if you got a problem with the antenna. That is not my opinion, that's a hardcore fact. The antenna of life itself is water. And I'll make a prediction. I will look into the crystal ball with 100% certainty and tell you this as a fact. That sometime in the near future, people are going to start wearing, to be able to live in the city, when they go to work or when they get up in the morning, because nobody would want to wear that at nighttime, is some sort of advanced metal mesh suit that is grounded everywhere. Like tie into your shoes, and your shoes, every step grounds it out. That's going to be the future. I can tell you that with 100%. I should set up a business with that right now. It's like, you want to feel 100% better living in the big city? We have underclothing, Faraday pajamas, if you will. Like one-pieces, where the shirt clips together electrically, with the trousers, the pants underneath. Feel a ton better. You just feel like, wow, I feel like I'm walking in the deep woods. It's like you essentially are walking in the deep woods wearing that Faraday suit in the middle of urban metropolis, because you're grounding out the enormous, I've said this a million times to people, if people could see the million frequencies, plus actually over that are penetrating their very existential beings every microsecond, it would scare the bejesus out of you. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. If people could just see it for even 5 seconds, it would scare the living snot out of you. And that is a hardcore fact that you should think about. So see how you could limit yourself on these vectors that are causing instability and people to be unhinged. It's hard. I know what people go through. I have countless stressors in life. All this tech trash that's surrounding me all the time to do half the jobs that I do. There's a reason why super rich people want to get out of the city. Like, why would you want to get out of the city? You're a mega millionaire. You can have anything brought to you, anything you want. You got I got all the money in the world. See, here's more tech trash. That's my phone ringing in the background. Why would you want to go out to the country? You got all the money in the world. It's like, it feels a lot better out there. They have everything that they could ever want with all the money that, they'd ever need to buy anything that they want. Why not just stay in the city? Why not lounge in your pool in the city? You got a pool and you got a masseuse. Why would you want to get out to the countryside or like some sort of remote place like Tahiti? Remote, live in a grass shack for a week or two or a month or whatever. I feel a lot better there. It's not the setting or the beauty or the beautiful beaches. It's the lack of EMF trash. Period. Thank you so much for watching. If you like these videos, any donation is always very warmly welcome and actually needed, to be honest with you. But I hope you like this video, and I hope you have a lovely week. Okay? Thank you. Lux e veritas.